It might be good to wear your fingertips, your leather fingertips when you're doing this, because I have cracked the heck out of my thumb. It's just so dry this summer. So, and if by any chance he would run out, you could just twist these other two and keep on going. So don't worry about things like that. I'm going to push him back down as I'm twisting. And let's see where our hole is and how far we are from there. And I really like the height up on this. You don't want it one dimension. You need the height, the different layers. I think that's kind of where the wire lace did come in nice, as it kind of gave it some height. Where our leaves, our gemstone leaves, are a little bit more flat, but that's okay. I believe we are there. So let's get this through the hole. One thing that you can do is when you're pushing these through, you can cut them the same length, and it's easier than putting one through at a time and having them different lengths. Push that little baby wire to the back. Get that nice and tight back there. You got to make sure, sometimes you think that you have that and you don't. See how far I am from that still? And we go all the way back there. And we're going to catch our other little baby wire here. And twist backwards. Twist backwards. Go backwards, up the gourd, up the gourd, up the gourd. I don't think I'm going to quite get a 1/2 inch out of him, but that's okay. He's nice and secure. Remember we talked about adding the quick wood if you had a broken one or needed more security over the top. So if you've done it cleaned up, you really can't see them once you hang them and get your stuff in the background, but you may feel that you need to cover them up, but they really do not show. They really, really do not show. So we're going to separate these. I'm trying to get them where they're laying evenly. No, I don't have one from way over the other side. Now remember, we've still got to put a leaf and a flower on. So we want to separate these out. And I think we're probably right about where we want to separate them out. And I think I'm going to take 4 up. 2 on each side, just so I have some more. And I am going to start getting my flower in. And he's going to end up clear at this hole up here. So we're going to start him down there. So we're not quite. Seeing if I can turn him this way and get him in with these guys or not. So I've kind of gone reverse direction with him, but I want to see when I start wrapping him how close that ends up. And that's pretty close. Just a couple little more here. Couple little more. I'm going to leave that leaf one alone and just put that in this one. Okay, where that would lay, that looks good. Line those up like we did our other ones, only I'm kind of upside down on this one, but that's okay. It's the back side of the flower. And twist and twist and twist. So we're going to get this guy, and he's actually going to go under because we have to get this flower part anchored on the top. So we've got him under. Make sure he's a good right where we need him, and it looks like that to me. I get these two tucked in that hole. I've got one that's longer than the other. Cut those off if that makes it easier. Let's make sure this lays nice and neat before we anchor this. Come on, little guy. Alright. You can get your pliers out and help you too if you need that help. I think we've got that good. So we're going to come and anchor that there. We've got those all three split apart. Now the stones, leaf stones, might stay in place better if they did not have the silver beads. So that's something to think about. I think it just kind of dresses them up a little bit. But I might even take another wire singly and run it through to see if it will stay tighter. Alright, so we've got that guy down. And we've only got one more to anchor. Yippee! Thought we'd probably never get there with all of this wrapping, right? And that, you could even glue these guys on with some E6000 if you didn't want them to move out of place. So we are going to get this last leaf in here. So we're going to start by kind of twisting that a little bit. Back doing that, turning that. I'm going to cut those to the same length. Put my silver on. I guess it's the reflection off of the studio lights that makes the silver ones hard to see. We didn't use our pliers at straighten wire. These are so good. If you don't have a pair of these and you've got a kink in your wire, just come along and do it a couple times. Also, if you kind of warm it up, your wire is easier to bend. So these are really nice to have in your arsenal of toys here. Now I want this one to go kind of out here. So we are not quite there yet. We need to go a little bit further. I can see that. And it is our last one, so yay. We want him to come up over the top here as much as possible and kind of hang out, going away from our other flowers. I know this can be a little bit tedious, but it will be worth it in the end. And sometimes I put a little bit more in my videos, but I know most people like that instead of less information. So really think about that when you're doing your video and want to enjoy it. And I'm going to do this guy a little bit differently. I'm making it up as I go along. Yes, I am. Because we want this one to kind of point out that direction. I'm going to twist him once so that I've got both beads up there. And then I'm going to anchor him. We've got him going the direction we want him to go. And maybe that's what we need to be doing on him, is kind of twisting him a little bit. Every time you do something, you learn. I learn something new almost every day still. It just amazes me. Twist him with that second bead on there as well. And I do not want this wire to show, so we're going to push him down and around. I don't know if you guys happen to see my tool rack. I'll show that in a minute. I absolutely love it because it's the first time I can just go and grab my tools when I want them. Okay, now you can see we don't have that, all of that silver showing up on the top. We're going to come back here for the last time. And to the back, to the back, to the back, to the back. I'll make that a song. Twist it to the back. It's the latest album out by Miriam Joy. Okay, I know we've done a lot. Hopefully you've stopped along the way, got some of it done, but have learned a lot. And we're going to come back in here and talk about prepping it for the next step. So I wanted to get this guy a little bit tighter. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to squeeze the wires in on the edge of him right there, the two beads together. And that should help support him and make him stronger. If I had enough to do a loop, I could do that. And I may still go back in there and add another wire just to make him that little bit stronger. On this one, I'm going to show you how to make a hanger. And we want our ground to be even when it hangs. So that looks about right to me. So it would kind of come up, I think, right about there. And we want to try and hang it to see, maybe just a little bit over, right about there. And I'm going to glue my flowers on with E6000. I think that's the way to go with these little guys. Other than that, I am very happy with it. I do like the leaves versus the silver. There's both ways. Anyway, so I'm going to use a heavy gauge wire. And just one that you can even just make a hanger with. And if you didn't have this, you could put a couple of pieces to hangers of wires together to make it. Or you could even use like a soda pop tap, or they use that a lot for hangers to hang stuff with. So I'm just kind of making that loop. This is going to be the only part that's going to show. So we want that nice, because that's going to be in somebody's house or your house or whatever. So we want that as even as we can kind of get it. But what we're going to do is when we get to this part of the gourd, you're actually going to bend it down. And so you got to think about how much you want showing from the outside. And that needs to be straight and flat. So when we come to here to put it on, that it hangs straight. And that looks good. Now to put it on today, we are going to use, I need to be able to see that from this side, and that looks pretty even with my wires from the bottom, but make sure you kind of test it because your wires could be hanging a little bit different. We're going to put this on with our quick wood. I have a bunch of videos. If you go to Miriam Joy 123 under YouTube and hit playlist and hit Quickwood videos, there is a ton of videos that gives you from the basics to all kinds of fun stuff. We're going to remove our jewelry. I'll leave my thumb rings on. They've had more quick in them than I care to know. And we're going to put vegetable oil on our hands. We are working with 2 parts epoxy. So I'm going to cut a little bit off, just enough to make a nice little hanger. Put that back on. That's to keep it fresh. We want to put it back into our tube and put the lid on to keep that nice and fresh. And that lasts, I've had mine years. But I'm always using them up. So, to activate it, we have the white and the tan. And we are going to knead it. And knead it and knead it till it is all one color, not marbleized. If you do not knead it enough, it will not harden. This is what I use for my clay, and it will be warm to the touch. And it has 30 minutes. I usually say 20 minutes workable time. It is rock hard in an hour. But what I'm doing is I get it set up and I just keep on working from there. I don't wait, because our next step is going to be to clean everything out. Now, the one thing I wanted to do, we had talked about a broken wire, and I'm going to try and find mine. I think I covered it up so well that I can't tell where it is. I think that is it right there. And that is it. I'm going to pull him out a little bit so I can get to him. Or maybe I should just leave him alone and let him be with that other wire. But to secure him, you could even do a little bit of E6000 if you wanted to. You do not need very much of this. I'm probably using even more than I should. But you do not want that to show on the other side. You don't want to be able to see that quickwood from the front side. That makes sense. And we talked about if you wanted to, you could even come in here and put it there. Now, we're going to go through and put this guy on. That goes in the middle. And I just put this in 2 pieces. Don't worry about it being exactly equal or anything like that. This is not perfect. So one thing I got in trouble with the galleries up in Sedona was they called me in and they said, we have an issue with your artwork. You make it too perfect and nobody believes it's handmade. So remember that next time you're trying to be perfect. Only God is perfect. Alright, so that's nice and down. I don't want to hang it from the hanger itself because it's going to come undone, but I want to make sure I've got it straight. I've got a little bit I want to make sure that's in the middle, and I think that looks pretty good to me. So we're going to leave that, but you want to make sure that wire is covered up really well. And while that wire and everything is drying, we are going to start touching it up. We're just going to use some black acrylic paint. Doesn't matter what brand. It's always something I get asked, and I said whatever you can find. And we're going to cover up our quickwood. And that one may need a couple of coats. So get that one going first. And then we're just going to clean up and make everything black again. And just anything that we may have knocked off during our wire twisting. So all of these little guys in here, we're just going to touch up and cover up with our black paint. And we don't have to cover this, don't worry about that. And then we're going to talk about our backings. So as you can see in this one here, we have kind of a yellowish background, and I wanted to talk to you about suede and leather and how to get them kind of more affordable. Right now prices are really low, so it's kind of nice, but you can do leather or suede. Like this black one is a really nice piece that I like using, and that kind of fades into the background, so that's really nice. I've also got some bigger pieces of leather that were from a jacket manufacturer, and these were their scraps. And you can use both sides. We've got the darker, and then we've got the lighter. I think I like the darker better on that. But I also want you to think about going to the thrift store and buying. This guy that I did before was actually a vest. This one is pants or a skirt, a suede, and look at the blue on that. And then we also have a red, which I think I'm going to use. And a lot of the clothing are usually one price, probably $2.50 for this, and I've used it for several projects, so think about that. Another place, if you can't find any of that, is look at your craft stores, and they will sometimes have pieces of leather that are big enough. This isn't quite big enough, but they may have a little bit bigger if you needed to. But look how pretty this red goes with what we're working on. This, I think we're going to call it Sedona Sunset. So I think that really fits. Now this gourd sits really flat. We cut it nice and flat when we were cutting it, so that's why it is real important to keep that as flat as you possibly can. If you need to sand it down a little bit in some areas to make it more flat, more even, you can do that. Or once you glue it, you can either flip it back up and press it down that way, and we'll talk about that as we're working here. So we've got this section that we know is going to work, and I think I'm going to get some scissors here, and I may have to go get my fabric scissors. We'll see in a minute. I don't think any of these small things are going to do me any good later on, so I'm not going to worry about trying to get that too close here, because I've got a pocket over here. Sometimes pockets are fun things to do a project with. You might even take that out, put that on a board, a sign, a gourd, who knows, all kinds of fun things. And this part as well, that would be fun on the top of a gourd to bring that around, so think about using that. Okay, so I have that big enough that I can deal with it, and we've got it all on. Make sure we've got all the edges on, and we're going to glue it on with E6000. And as you can see, I love my E6000, and we are very low. I've got a new one sitting over there, but E6000 is just a great glue. It glues so much together that you can't normally get together in rock to rock, glass to stone, leather to gourd, so on and so forth. So we do carry it at miriamjoy.com if you can't find it in your local stores, or you need to get it in the mail. And then we also, I believe, sell the keys, which really makes it practical to twist it up. Otherwise, it's just not fun. And we're just going to glue this edge all the way around. And then once I get with it, we're going to leave it set through the night. You could do it in a couple hours if you wanted to, but the E6000 says to do it for 24 hours to set, and I am just going to do it 24 hours to set, just to let it set up, so I don't want to mess it up. You don't want so much that's squishing out too much, but it should be on the inside where it's not going to show, and on the outside where we're going to cut it off when we're done, so we're not going to worry about that. If you're under a direct fan right now in the summertime, you might want to turn it off till you get this glue on. It's not going to set up that fast, but make sure you go over your hook here, your hanger, and have glue on that so that it'll glue. And I think I have it all. If you need to hold it up and look at it, you can see it across the top. Make sure you got all of it. Looks pretty good. Get the lid back on this guy. And now we want to not move it around a lot. We want to kind of aim for where it should go. And if you wanted to iron this ahead of time and have it nice and tight, you could do that too. Make sure I get it all on before I push it down. I want to check this side, and we are almost there, just a tad. And now I'm gonna pull it out, make sure there's no wrinkles on the inside, and then we're going to push it down. And I actually take my finger and kind of rub that around, but you can leave it and dry it. I think it's easier to do to cut off if we spread it out a little bit. If you messed it up inside, you could take your finger and go inside, but nobody should be looking on the inside that close. It shouldn't be able to show up that close. The only part that I have that's a little bit different height is where I did the hanger. Otherwise, he is really, really good. I'm going to keep the pressure on him for a few minutes, and then I think I'm going to glue just a tad down those guys. I can even do it while we're sitting here. I'm not going to do much. I just want to have them where they don't run around on me. Just a little bit. Just so they don't flip up or down if you happen to be carrying it or somebody was looking at it. You know, they probably wouldn't like that. And that should be good to go. So now that we've let him dry overnight, we're going to cut him out, and I'm going to be using a box knife. Be very, very careful. It is very sharp, and what we're going to do, I'm going to do it backwards so you can see here, is just put that right up next to your gourd as much as you possibly can and cut that leather. And as you can see, I am cutting on an old wooden cutting board. Thrift store, great. It doesn't have to be good, just has to be useful. So we're just going to simply go around this, and if you need to come back and cut it again or cut it a little bit closer, go ahead and do that. We've cut all the way around this. Now we're going to go back and catch anything that may not have glued down, and just do that with our little E6000. We've got the little tips now. I went and pulled the new one out. You saw what I was working with, but hey, good to the last drop. So we're going to puncture this one, and it's got 3 tips in it now. I imagine it'd be kind of hard to clean out if you had to. And It's really nice though because we got the precision. So if you had some extra wire, you may want to keep it to help clean out your E6000 tips instead of using a new one every time. So what we're simply going to do, try and get my bigger hand out of the way here, is come back now on all of those areas that we needed to apply a little bit of glue and stick it just a little bit more. And here we come. So a lot of people, my sister kept saying she couldn't get E6000 to work. And what I found out was she wasn't expecting thick glue. She was expecting the consistency of glue she's used to. So know that your E6000, put that on there for a minute, is always thicker than your other glues. And we're just gonna do those. Our leather could have been a little bit tighter there. We're gonna wipe that off. So now just go ahead and touch up any areas you may need to. Now we're going to do something I've been doing since I started the gem trees. I actually added this part. It just cleans up that edge of the gourd and makes it nice and clean. Now we're going to be putting brown in the kits, one brown leather suede strap, because that's probably the color you're going to end up with. But I found a red that really matches the inside leather of my gourd, so I'm going to be using that as I go today. And this is where that little tip comes in nice and handy, and you can even apply it as you're going along. I'm kind of working backwards so you can kind of see it. What I want to do though when I get up here is I want to start this. You can either do this at the bottom or the top, whichever you think needs to be, but I only want to go halfway with my suede lacing on this hook part, and then I'll meet it around on the other side. Now you should not be going so far up that you can see the glue. Do it way down close to the gourd. Keep it nice and tight so that you don't have any glue show, because you're trying to cover up it being sloppy, not being making it more sloppy. Now another thing I do on the brown, sometimes in the middle where the pieces are put together, they have a little white spot, and if that shows up, I take a permanent marker and color it, and then I don't have that white spot. So that is a little tip, and I am just going to finish applying this one all the way around. And if you're setting it on something, make sure that your glue doesn't get stuck down. You don't want to glue it to, especially with E6000, it's not going to go anywhere if you do. And these tips are really nice. They'll be great for stones, putting stones on to the board with. So that's a nice added feature to the E6000. And hopefully it'll make it not as messy for me to use, because I am a true artist. I am messy. And don't ask my husband that question. And I'm just going to finish up, and we'll meet up at the top. If you get a little bit of glue that's coming to the top, take your fingernail, or if you're like me and you don't have any fingernails, and just kind of wipe it off. Make sure I undo my scissors. I don't want them to glue together. Nice and clean.
Looks nice.
So we've come all the way around, and when you're putting this, you want this as flush to the ground or your surface as possible. And I want to cut this, try and get this so there's no space in between. If you cut too much off and you need to put a little bit more back in, you can cut a tiny piece and stick it back in. I still need to take this down just a tad. But it's better to do smaller ones than bigger ones. have to get my clippers out here. This is getting hard here. After I've got this all glued on, of course. Hopefully we'll go right back down. And then see, we're going to butt up right to that. If you've done that right, you shouldn't have any space between those. And that should just kind of blend together. And that is how we finish him off. Now I'm going to talk to you about this being a lamp, and I didn't want to do it on this one. I wanted this one just to hang, but we'll show you how beautiful it is with the red light lit up. So there, I'm going to put a video, and it's actually putting the light in a gemstone tree, but it's done exactly the same way. The one thing I might do different, this sits on a stand because you've got your cord, and I'm not sure I like my cord coming off the wall. I would probably think about coloring it brown or something like that. I'm not sure, but it's really pretty. We do have the hole that we put here, but if you were going to hang it, you'd need to make a hole here, and I might do that with a Dremel and just Dremel that out, that part out, try not to cut that, and do that with this one. But that's totally up to you. Like I said, on this one I didn't want to do the light, and I really, really like the red, or excuse me, the turquoise leaves in this compared to the silver. It's just different. So you've got both that you can look at. But I wanted to kind of give you an idea how that would look if we lit that up with our light. And we do have the light kits at miriamjoy.com. I don't mean to sound like a big infomercial, but we want to make sure you can get the products that we do and be able to do the same thing. My husband asked me why we didn't put alcohol inks on our leaves to make the veins show up a little bit more. So I am taking Stream, and I'm just using a Q-tip and trying to get it into those veins, and then we're just going to wipe off the rest of it. If you didn't like it, take your alcohol and remove it right off, and you're good to go. Okay. Now the next thing I do with these lights is I take a metal wire cutter and I remove the clip part because I'm not using this part and I want it a little bit more flush. That's totally up to you if you do that or not decide to do that. And you don't have to turn these into lamps. If you like them just the way they are, just leave them just the way they are. I kind of played with my light a bit, and if I put it down here, the roots really shined up here, but if I put it here, then the stones really lit up. So I really like that better. But what I want you to think about is where your light is. Don't think about this being your light. Your light comes from this area here, so you want to kind of even that off in the middle there. So right in the middle of your tree or wherever you would like the light to come out. And then we're going to go ahead and put our light in with Quickwood. And if you have a better way of doing that, feel free to do that. But there's a couple reasons I'm going to use the Quickwood. And Quickwood is a 2-part epoxy. We do sell that at miriamjoy.com. First thing we're doing when you work with Quickwood is remove your jewelry, because it'll be rock hard in an hour, even in your jewelry. There's your 2-part epoxy, and this is one of those times I'm going to use a little bit more. So I'm going to cut this with my scissors and make sure you unwrap the plastic. So many people forget that. I'm going to spray my hands with some vegetable spray. I know my bottle's getting real pretty there, so it doesn't stick to me. And then we're going to knead it together, and that's what's going to activate it. And you have 30 minutes workable time. You should not need that much time. Knead that till all the marbleizing is gone and it is one clear, nice color. So I'm going to roll it up in a ball, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about where this is going, and I'm going to set this down. Now my intention, once I push this, is to not only get the light secure to the gourd. You don't want the light to show from the front either, but I do not want the light to touch my lining in the back. And also this piece of quickwood is going to keep my light up off the gourd. So that is why we're kind of attaching it all that way. And I also want to kind of bring this down and around. I'm going to attach that kind of lightly there. You don't want that coming over that white part at all. So we're going to just kind of set that there. Now what I did last time I did this is I went ahead and painted the bottom part black. But I think I'm going to wait and just paint it all at the end. The black is just in case it kind of shows through. It's not a big deal. And then I'm going to go ahead and do a second batch of quickwood, and that's going to go over the top. But if this sinks down a little bit, just kind of push it back up. And you can even pull it up if it doesn't quite go on right. Don't wait too long though. The longer you wait, the less it likes to stick to the gourd. You have a lot of working time. It's just don't pick it up like after 15 minutes or so. So now that I've got that all worked, I'm just going to make a piece of quickwood, and I'm just going to bring it over that light. Now, I'm not going to worry about making it real pretty. You can make it as pretty as you want. That's totally your prerogative. My thing is I want it up off the gourd. Don't want it touching the light where it's warm at all. And however you want to do that. Now, on this cord, there's a couple of things that we could do. If you want to just continue using the quickwood and kind of tack it down in a couple places, you could. Another thing you could do is hot glue pieces of material on, but you'd have to make sure that you're not touching your cord. You're just touching the material in the sides of the gourd. Either one of those ways will work really well. And after you get this all done, you're going to let it set for an hour. And if you want to paint that quickwood black so it blends into the background so nobody sees that, you can go ahead and do that. Well, I really hope you enjoyed this class. We learned a lot today and a lot of different techniques. Just put your own flair to it and make it yours. We are going to have kits available for all of the items basically up on top of the gourd per se at miriamjoy.com. If you ever have a question regarding a class or anything we've done, please email me at art@miriamjoy.com and we'll be glad to help you. Thank you so much. God bless.